Now call to order. It is February 5th, 2025. The time is 6:32 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. So, Zach, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then can we call roll?
The following board members are present at the District Administration Office. Scott Andresen.
Here.
Natalie Copeland.
Here.
Zach Dorholt is here. Diana Fenton.
Here.
Shannon Haas.
Here.
Heather Weems.
Here.
And the following cabinet members and staff are present at the District Administration Office. Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Educational Services Shannon Abenson, Executive Director of Community Education Adam Holm, Executive Director of Finance and Business Services Amy Scalrud, Executive Director of Special Projects Gary Ganji, Director of Community Engagement and Communications Tammy DeLand, Media Technicians Paul Novak and Gordy Scott, and the custodian on site is Austin Goodwater.
Thank you. Then I need a motion to approve tonight's Board of Education meeting and work session agenda.
So move.
I have a motion by Scott, a second by Natalie. Zach, can you call vote?
Diana Fenton,
Yes.
Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Heather Weems,
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Zach Dorholtz, yes.
Then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of personnel staff changes. Item B, approval of monthly financial report for December 2024. Item C, approval of monthly treasurer's report for December 2024. Item D, request for proposals, audit services. Item E, Apollo Theater improvements change order totaling $3,000. And item F, resolution to appoint absentee ballot board for April 8th, 2025 special election. I have one request from Heather to remove item A. Does anybody else wish to remove an item?
Yes.
Which item?
Item E.
B?
E. Edward.
E. Okay. Shall we do, never had two before, so. How about, do you have a question about E?
Yeah, I'd like to know what it's about.
The,
We didn't have a finance meeting this week, and I'd like to know what $3,000 is about.
Okay. Amy can probably answer that for you.
Yep, so this relates to the theater seating. So originally, the theater seating had been planned to be installed all at once, but based on the staging and the timing of the rest of the work, they had to do the upper balcony seating in one install and the lower seating in a second. And so this is for an additional storage and trip charge for the theater seating vendor to store that seating and then come back a second time.
Thank you.
Okay. I apologize if I did this wrong, so I don't know. So are we good with that? And so then now I'm looking for a motion to approve B through F as read.
Second.
I have a motion by Natalie, a second by Scott. Zach, can you call vote on that? Or, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yep. Sorry, you guys threw me off with your two.
You're doing it.
Shannon Haas.
Yes.
Heather Weems,
Yes.
Scott Andresen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Zach Dorholtz, yes. Diana Fenton.
Yes.
Okay, and then we have item A. Heather would like to recuse herself from the vote. So I need a motion to, and a second to approve item A.
So move.
Again, motion by Scott, second by Natalie. Zach, can you call vote, except for Heather?
Zach Dorholz, yes. Natalie Copeland?
Yes.
Scott Andresen?
Yes.
Shannon Hawes?
Yes.
Diana Fenton?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to the tearjerker for the night. And I got my box of Kleenexes here. We have one informational item tonight. You're Not Alone presentation. And we have Shannon Avison, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Educational Services, will introduce the team here. Oh,
All right. Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, and members of the board. I am incredibly excited to introduce our two guests tonight. They are here to share about our outstanding partnership with You're Not Alone, which provides a free service of therapy dogs within our schools. Amy Tyson Walls is an avid pup lover, advocate for the underdog, vocalist, and speaker with a mission of creating a non-judgmental zone by personally understanding the many trials of our students' experience with mental health diagnosis, anxiety, depression, bullying, etc. Amy began by sharing the unconditional love of her therapy pup, Willow Grace, in the Monticello Middle Schools in October of 2020, and after piloting this program for 18 months, You're Not Alone became a member-recognized 501c3 nonprofit in June of 2022. Jenny Schad is a school counselor at Tech High School and has served in District 742 high school students for over 30 years. She is passionate about promoting growth and development for all students. It has been a lifelong dream of hers to bring pet therapy to her practice as a school counselor, and she is extremely grateful to the support and encouragement she received to pursue this goal. Jenny believes sharing her dog Murphy with the students and staff at Tech has provided students and staff with joyful and comforting interactions. I'm pleased to turn it over.
Test. Perfect. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Again, my name is Amy Tyson Walls, and I drove here in a snowstorm. It is something out there. I just have to share my gratitude with the St. Cloud School District for being open to allowing us to come in and partner with you. It has been my life's mission to do this. So, right off the bat, I want to bring attention to our logo, and we have a hidden message in our logo, and generationally, some people will not see it or know what it is. But if you look in the puppy's face, there is a semicolon, and I use my personal my history of what that semicolon stands for. So 18 of 36 years of my life, I struggled with anxiety, depression, but always had a smile on my face. No one ever knew it. And when my invisible disease became quite visible as it manifested in anorexia, it was time to get some help. And that was in 2005 when no one talked about mental health and you were looked down severely, literally as if you were crazy. We had built this persona of a family that was perfect, involved in everything, and behind closed doors, you never know what goes on. So if we could move to the next slide. And what that semicolon means is I could have put a period then and said, this is just the way my life is. It's never going to get better. But that semicolon is a pause. People succumb to suicide at that period. But if there's a semicolon, there's hope on the other side. And my hope is what I'll share with you. So right now, mental health defined is a condition regards to psychological and emotional well-being. And the tag word right now is always, if you have a brain, you have mental health. Okay, next one. So these statistics are almost 2 years old, so I do need to update them, but they're staggering. 1 in 5 American adults will have a diagnosable mental health condition in every given year. 46% of Americans meet that criteria of being diagnosed with a mental health condition sometime in their life. But the sad part is that half of them by the age of 14 are diagnosed. And 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. So 2 years into my recovery in 2007, our 11-year-old, who was a 6th grader, was struggling, and we saw some personality changes. We were unaware what was going on in his life until we were in the emergency room after he attempted to take his life. And what we came to find out is that he had been being physically bullied in the school for months and didn't share it with one person. All it would have taken was one. So, as you can imagine, the dysfunction was quite great with a mom suffering and a child, and we had 2 other children. And we did the inpatient, we did the outpatient. And what 11-year-old boy wants to talk about their feelings and emotions in 2007 when you were stigmatized to be crazy? So the one piece of gold that a therapist shared was, I think you should get him a dog. So we did that. You can go to the next. Unbeknownst to me, but that became my life's mission. And it all came true just the last few years. We met our puppy when she was 6 hours old, and we were allowed to visit her every single day. Her name was Lily Ray of Hope, because if you have a ray of hope, you have a future. And she was a darling little black lab that my husband said, absolutely not, we cannot get this dog. If you can imagine, he worked full-time in St. Cloud. He went to school in St. Cloud. He had a wife and a son that were sick and 2 other children. And unbeknownst to us, all 5 of us had anxiety that had never been addressed. So you can say dysfunction at its finest. But I told him that God told me this was the tool in the toolbox that we have not yet tried for our mental health. And the funny thing is 5 years later at Christmas, he brought his own dog home. He realized what this dog did for him, so much so that now we have 2 dogs. So you're not alone, plain and simple. We never want any family to feel as alone on an island like we did. You had no one to talk to. So we are seeking to shatter that stigma of mental illness by one therapy dog at a time. And I had Willow planned to go into the Mercy Hospital setting because I worked at the hospital, and I was going to start 2 pilot programs there, and COVID hit. And there is a silver lining with COVID. We can now talk about our mental health as if it's to say, I have a cold today. I'm feeling anxious today. So Eric Olson, the superintendent in Monticello, allowed me to come into the same space where my son had been being bullied and create conversation with students. We started with groups of 20 students, and I did 3 groups of 20, and it was too many. So we learned. So now we find that I do 6 groups of 12 in about an hour and a half. 15 minutes with the dog in a circle is enough time for those kids to get that dopamine release when you see an animal. And then if you can pet an animal, your blood pressure and your pulse lower. And you'd be amazed, adults and children alike, how they share when you create that unconditional love and non-judgmental zone. So I would love to share with you this video, and this was after 8 months into our expansion last year, and I just would like to share that with you. You're Not Alone was created because I had a son when he was 11 years old, struggling with mental health issues, and we had a puppy that came along and saved our family.
I lost my dad when I was 2 to pneumonia and stuff. That was really hard growing up. I've dealt with suicide thoughts, attempts, depression, and anxiety. When you're in the struggle, it just feels like you're struggling alone. That's what you feel like, but you're really not. I feel like I can be more open, and I can say anything, and like a dog knows when you're sad or you're struggling, so it just comes to me and it sits down and it lets me pet them.
I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and
whenever I pet Willow, I would just focus on that and my mind wouldn't be racing as much. It's just this dog helping people just overcome these thoughts.
Therapy dogs in school just help create that bridge where some of these kids, they're not gonna go to the school counselor, they're not gonna talk to the social worker. But if there is a space and then there's, kind of this vessel of a dog, it just allows, I think, kids to open up about some of these things. And then, those mental health professionals in the schools are present and can then circle back to that and bridge, I think, some of these kids that, sometimes slip through the cracks in ways where no one knows they're struggling or no one knows what they're struggling with their mental health or at home. And so I think that's the real value to being able to have therapy dogs in schools.
A few weeks ago, when I was sharing with some middle schoolers about the symptoms of anxiety and what happens within your body, she stayed later to tell me, I think I really have that and I've never told anyone before. So we were able to get her in touch with the school, therapists, social workers, and get her the help she needs. And 2 weeks later, when she came back with a smile on her face, knowing that we had helped her, it made everything worthwhile. You're Not Alone was a mission planted in my heart many, many years ago. And to walk alongside kids that are struggling, that maybe haven't vocalized it yet, was exactly where I was meant to be. The interesting thing about the second girl with the long blonde hair, she came to me shaking uncontrollably. Her name was Lily. And fearful of dogs.
You're not alone with...
Oh, that's okay. And her friend made her come and said, you have to meet Willow. You won't be afraid anymore. And she was an only child. And within 2 months, she got an emotional support animal at home. So for her too, she has a special place. So when we decided to venture out in May of 23, the goal for September was 10 schools. So if you think back, May of that year, I was the only therapy dog in one team in one school. Last year, we hit 23 schools. And what that means is that we assign a dog and its handler to a school, and they commit to coming in once a week for 2 hours at a time. And we create where this pup becomes like the social emotional mascot of the students. They get an 8x10 picture in the office with their name on it. If we can get their school badge done, we do. The joke with the one I got with Willow is hers says she's staff, and mine says I'm a volunteer. And I had an 8th grade student laugh about that. He had been with me since 6th grade. And he said, well, how much does Willow get paid? And I said, well, she can't get paid. Well, how much do you get paid? And I said, it says I'm a volunteer. And he says, wait a minute. You've been coming here for 3 years, every week for 2 hours for us, and you're not getting paid. And I said, mm-mm. And he goes, why do you do it? I said, you know my story. I want a better future. And out of a 14-year-old boy's mouth, he said, I love what you're doing before, but now I love it even more. So those kids I started with are sophomores this year. So this year, we kind of expanded largely again. We are in 42 schools. As you can see, all the different schools and districts we're in, but we need therapy dog teams up here in St. Cloud horribly, okay? So I have had, you shared a flyer, and I've had about 5 inquiries from staff members. So we're hoping that we can get them through the process to be certified and then come back and join us and get placed in one of your schools. And if you can imagine, our first year we went nationwide. We're in Providence, Rhode Island already, and we're waiting to start a second one there now. We can go to the next slide. All right, so this was last year's team. This is what got us through. Jenny was not on that yet because she is a 24-25. And the thing that I want you to realize is that we can't charge the schools. because we're volunteer therapy dog handlers. And that's what I really wanted for this program. Your school budgets are heavily engaged, heavily taxed. What's the right word, right? So the way I come into a school is I say, we come in as another level of support. You have great programs in place, you have, social workers, school counselors, but if we could come in and create this environment, we go by our first names unless you're staff. But the reason we go by our first name is because children don't have to see us every day as a person of authority. If we come in as a caring community member, they're more apt to open up. And I've seen it over and over. I know I would have never opened up to school staff because I would never have wanted them to think worse of me. So you can go to the next one. All right, so here are our St. Cloud teams. Sarah and Watson, the Burmese mountain dog, is our Kennedy dog. And the fun thing about that is all 4 of her children went through Kennedy, and now she gets to come back in a different setting. And then we've got our beautiful Jenny and Murphy there in the center. Miss Putnam connected us after and sent me a video of Murphy in the talent show last year. And I said, you're going to have no problem passing the certification exam. And then on the far is South Junior High's Betty and Hunter Coco. And if you have never seen Betty, she's about this tall. And her dog's about this tall. And I just have such admiration for a woman of her age being so giving. And we had her in an elementary school first, and it wasn't the right fit for her. They were a little too squirmy. So I'd like to just read to you just some feedback that we've gotten, if that's okay. So this one here is from South Junior High, and it is from Shara Stone. And she says, we have Betty and Hunter Coco come to South 1 hour, 1 day each week. They alternate Mondays and Thursdays to be able to meet with students during their tiger times. My next group isn't until next Thursday, but I will reach out to counselors. I don't think I was supposed to read that. We got a late start this year on setting up our groups. Because of placing her there, we were going to give it a test. Okay. I have had several instances when I have a student who is struggling in their day and they come to the office for help. Upon seeing Hunter, they are quickly distracted from what is upsetting them and they lean into him. I often witness the faces of students, staff, and families who enter the office carrying on their normal routines with faces that lack much emotion. As soon as they see Hunter, their eyes light up and they smile as they come over and ask if they can pet him. Hunter is a chocolate lab that loves to be pet and wags his tail when someone walks up to him. I hear their stories about their pets or how they always have wanted a dog. Also, to know that Hunter is always on a leash the entire time, which is a rule, and does not act with any person who does not wish to be near him. Now, we have a couple cute stories about Watson. Okay, so I'm just going to share a very little bit about what Anna Wilhite wrote here. I want to share that our partnership with You're Not Alone has been a substantial impact on our students. We have been able to provide a connection and support for our students that have been struggling with friendships, mental health concerns, and school anxiety. If we could have him here every day and all day, we would. One thing that Sarah told me, and when I met with Lori the first time, I felt like I was going to have a battle. I actually prepared myself by talking to Ion to see what the Muslim community, what their dislike of dogs was, because I like to be prepared. So, of course, I had a tire blowout a mile down the road. They waited for me, and within 5 minutes, she said, so only the middle schools we can start with? So that put me right at ease. What was very interesting, and I've spoke to the kids at Kennedy, the 8th graders, mental health talk. That's where my heart is, to talk to these kids. But Watson was present. And there is quite a distinction in the demographics of how they behave around dogs, and partly because they've never had the exposure. Well, what had happened with Sarah and Watson is that she was in the classroom and all the kids got to line up to pet him. The very last boy, she watched him as he was so scared and nervous. And as he made his way to the front, he went to pet and then he got scared. So then Sarah moved him around to the back. So this is the way we have found that this works with that demographic. It's the saliva that they feel is unclean. So if you can move a child to the back and pet an animal for the very first time, within 5 minutes, that little boy was hugging Watson, and his classmates cheered for him, and they said, he got over his fear. What a great lesson that was. You can go on to the next. This is our call to communities to come and partner with us. I'm not here as a salesperson, but this was done. I'm very proud of how this was done, and it just is a great lesson for us.
Today's youth have many opportunities. The world is full of adventure and learning. However, many young people are dealing with stress and anxiety, peer pressure, social media, schoolwork, family dynamics. It can all just be too much. Many times, all they need is a helping hand or a supportive smile. Hi, my name is Kurt Fozen, father of 6 and one of the founding board members of You're Not Alone. And You're Not Alone, we believe we can be that helping hand to help young people navigate through the difficult years. Since 2021, You're Not Alone has been using a unique approach, bringing trained and certified therapy dog teams in schools across Minnesota, helping to reach students in a way that provides them unconditional love and support. Today, You're Not Alone has grown to over 16,000 students across Minnesota and beyond. This is where I need your help. You're Not Alone is looking for partners, financial partners that are willing to step up and partner with us on our cause to help make a positive impact on mental illness and to help students navigate through those troubling years. At You're Not Alone, we believe we can be that difference, and together, we can change lives. You're not alone. Your story continues.
I think I have one more slide. That's all right. It'll start again, just to warn you.
Have many opportunities.
Okay, I'm just going to leave that up there. I'm not going to talk about that. But I'd love to send around some goodies for you. In this box, you're going to find a few things. We lost a team member in May to suicide, unfortunately. She and her sister joined us in tribute to their sister that they lost 20 years ago. And so now that friend has lost 2 sisters. So the widow, Amy's husband, gifted us with one of my items on my bucket list of bracelets. I'd love to show you, though, how you're to wear it. So if you wear it so people can read, "You're not alone," when you ripped up your arm, it'll say "Your story continues." So you're going to find these in there. Help yourself. There's large and small. My card's in there if you need it. Things that we do in the school, we have what are called, this is just a normal deck of cards, and we do what we call conversation possibilities. If our team is struggling to make conversation, which doesn't ever happen, but it's a game that we can play to draw out conversation. All of our kids are preempted and taught the therapy dog do's and don'ts, how to behave, how to make a successful therapy dog visit. Everyone here, if you'd like, can get our Founding Canine Willows trading card. All of our teams have trading cards. And a sensory sticker on the back that you can put on your water bottle when you're struggling. It's a sensory one. We have stickers in here that no matter what you're going through, you still matter. And wonderful pens that are tricky, so I'm just going to show you right now. This is how you use them. And then help yourself to a postcard about us. New this year, every school has a mini me of their therapy dog left behind. This is a Willow or a Murphy, and we have a couple golden doodles. We leave that behind, whether it's in the school counselor's office, the school social worker's counselor, as a reminder, especially for the little kiddos, if they need that reminder of what it felt like. And then the other thing you'll see is every team now has a portfolio of all of our therapy dogs. So they can look and say, Miss Amy, when you need a sub, can we meet so-and-so? So feel free to take what you would like. I have some cards in there if necessary. And then one thing that we're just giving you tonight is that we are sharing with the schools, and they can utilize them however they would like, is paw packs, positive packs. Each of the kids will get a bracelet, a soothing stone, our founding canine, her trading card, and a sensory sticker. So this year we're giving all the schools 10 because I just got them done. Next year we'll do 20. And because we can't receive payment for our services, you can purchase merchandise for us if you want to do giveaways in your school. We can't refuse a donation, but that's how we are funded. Okay. I would like Jenny, if you have questions for either Jenny or I, what it's like for her at Tech.
Yeah, I'm really Jenny Schad, as I was introduced, and a counselor, been in the district over 30 years. And as my introduction said, this was a lifelong dream. I had no idea how to make it happen, and the stars aligned. And having this partnership with Murphy, a part of my profession this year, has really been kind of life-changing. And you know, when you're 30 years into a career, there's lots of ups and downs, and this has definitely been an up. Some of the things we do, I try to be in the entryway in the morning and greet people, because I have yet to see a person walk by, look at him, and not smile. I mean, it just instantly brings a smile to people's faces. In my office, he just basically does this all day. Sleeps all day. He's got a dog bed. He'll sometimes sit on my cozy chair, or under my desk is his kind of kennel. And he, you know, when people come, it's amazing to me how they do open up. And I think just the tactile petting of a dog puts you in the moment. And I talk about that with kids, how important mindfulness and being in the moment is. Another thing I've added is I go into the health classrooms each trimester when they talk about the mental health unit, and it's a really good opportunity for me to share. We both go there, and to share what we can offer the school, and to educate students on the difference between service animals and therapy animals. And it's just been I can't even explain what it's like to walk down the hall, and certain students are just really drawn to Murphy. In addition, a lot of staff stop by my office, and something that just kind of touches my heart is I do have regular staff members that see him, and I know it is a help. In fact, just tonight before I left Tech, one of our custodians who had a pretty significant loss in the last year came and said he was thinking about that, and he knew he could come to work tonight and see Murphy before he started his shift. So, I mean, it's remarkable to me on all of the people he is touching within our building. And then professionally, I just am so grateful, and I feel so supported, and you know, it's encouraging me to get some further education. I'm going to start a class on animal-assisted crisis response. which is kind of exciting to me because it just will teach me some skills and tools to better utilize, our presence in the school. So any questions at all?
We do supply all of our teams with $300 of continuing ed credits a year as a thank you. And so we'll be paying for that class. I just feel like having that learning, whether it's further training with them and their dog, or if it's mental health related. And we always have a staff member present with us. So I want you to know that. We are not mental health professionals. We're just humans that have really caring hearts and have dogs that have magic.
Scott?
Okay, good presentation.
Thank you.
Therapy dogs have been around for a while. I know some of our teachers actually have them and take them to hospitals and to nursing homes. I know at one point there was a gentleman that tried to introduce therapy dogs to the district and he was turned away. Why finally now?
I think, well, a lot of it has to do with COVID, if I can be quite honest. And because I had the things the children were saying after being in the school with Willow is what really sealed the deal. And because now we come in, we have policies and procedures, we have a contract, there's checks and balances that we do. And it's the wave of the future to have even a facility dog on site every day. I even have admin that are training their dogs to have in the office in some schools. And you can take a dysregulated child that takes 45 minutes to calm down, and when there's a dog present, it cuts it to 20.
What kind of training do you give the dogs?
So when I started, you had to do normal puppy, Canine Good Citizen, and therapy dog training. Canine Good Citizen is the top level of a pet. You do a test with your dog. Therapy dog, you do a very extensive, it's 20 things that you have to and your dog have to do. And if number 3, you goof up, it's over. You come back after you've practiced more. So it is really a stringent certification because we don't ever want a dog to be in a situation where they're not comfortable, where they feel like they have to protect us. So and then every team, their certification company has $2 to $4 million policy on them. And I think it just finally makes sense for schools to go this route.
Okay, I'm still curious about the training. It isn't Fido Go Fetch, is it?
No.
No.
Okay, tell me.
No, okay. So things that you have to do with your dog. You have to be able to walk on a loose leash. You have to be able to walk by a treat and they won't go for it. You have to walk by a toy and they can't go for it. You have to be able to put them in a sit, in a stay, in a down. You have to be able to put them on, you always are on leash. You have to have a 20-foot leash they give you that you snap on their collar. You take yours off. You always are in control of your dog. If you do it backwards, you fail. You have to be in control. Keep your dog in a stay. You walk away 20 feet, the length of that. Someone comes up and starts to love on them, and you have to get them to come to you. So dropping a loud, like pizza pan, something behind them, they can react, but they have to overcome it and not go into timid mode. They have to walk by another dog, and that doesn't always work well when your dog is an alpha. So Willow and I have had to work on that a lot. So you have to walk by. Humans are in the middle, dogs are on the outside. If the dog crosses you, yep. So that was my problem the first time with Willow. And I was allowed to go into the middle school without certification yet. Because it was COVID, I couldn't get a test. So the kids all knew Willow's taking her test. And how do I tell them? Instead of saying, and I take this from John Maxwell, leadership author, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And that was the lesson the kids learned that day. We needed more practice.
You mentioned that you go into the schools once a week for 2 hours.
We do.
Is that enough?
No, we would love to do it more. We would love to do it more, but a lot of our people, they have to take those 2 hours off of work. And so, I mean, corporations are nice, they let them do that. That is why I would still really promote you getting a facility dog, but then also still have another team come in and do that 2 hours of small group. So that's what we would do. Now, in this case, in the high school, it's a little different. We started in middle school. Small groups are more common. Kids are more open to it. So each age level has a little bit different of a change in our program.
Facility dog, what's the difference between that and one that comes in 2 hours a week?
Murphy here is a facility dog. He goes to work every day with Jenny. That's a facility dog.
Almost every day. Pretty
Almost
much every day. I give them some days off now and then.
Yeah, but that's a facility dog. So really my mission, I think every school nurse needs to have a facility dog. If you can imagine the number of children, as you know, that go with headaches, stomach aches, it's all anxiety related. If they could pet a dog for 5 minutes, they could go right back to class. That's my wish.
How do you choose who's going to be coming in to these, the kids? I mean, we've got hundreds of
question.
kids in our schools. Who's the lucky one that gets to go pet the dog for 5 minutes?
So originally when we started at the Monticello Middle School, it was during the lunch hour, and they could get a puppy pass. It was first come, first serve. Instead of having recess where they'd go to the gym, they could choose to see us. Then with the 6th grade level, we gave it to what we call our M&M or homeroom teachers, and they dispersed them so that it wasn't always the same kids. A new thing we're doing in the elementary schools this year is because it's hard for kids that haven't been able to see the dog, and it could take months. So we are now going, as long as the allergies are okay, classroom to classroom to introduce the dog and the handler the very first time. And then the next time the kids are prepped, yes, it's a large group, it's probably 25 kids, but they're prepped. They sit in a circle, and then we do a 15-minute session with them so that all the elementary kids are going to see the dog within like the first month. And that has really helped tremendously. We tell our schools, though, if they do the puppy pathway or they specifically have students that are in need, we can't only help kids that are in need. One of our schools last year only did that. And what happened is the kids that were, now I'm going to use the word general population of students versus kids in need. The general population of students said, only the kids that have troubles get to see the dog. And so that is one guideline that we say we can't allow you to do that in your school. You have to do it both ways.
You mentioned that there is a service dog versus therapy dogs.
Yes.
Explain the difference.
I love to educate, and this is something I want my teams to educate kids on. I'm going to give you a little spiel here. I say to the kids, okay, you have a pet. Can your pet go to McDonald's? Can it go to the Cub? Can it go to Walmart? No. Your pet is in your yard or on a leash. An emotional support animal is the next level. Now, anyone that has a diagnosis of ADHD, anxiety, depression, autism, can get a prescription from their doctor for an emotional support animal. They can't take them into stores. But what it does do is it allows kids that need that animal as part of their mental health toolbox to take them to college. They can't be refused. or to go to an apartment building where no animals are allowed, by law, they have to allow them and they cannot charge them a fee. So people with emotional support animals think they have free rein to bring them everywhere, and that's ruining it for our service animals. The next level is a therapy dog. She is my pet. I would say Willow is my husband's emotional support animal. And a therapy dog. Her job is love. Her job is to be petted, to give unconditional love. Yes, ask before you pet is always a good thing. So we teach the kids that. Can Willow go to Walmart? She can't go to a restaurant. So we need people, the general population, to understand this. A service dog helps people with diabetes, epilepsy, mobility assist, autism, PTSD, sight and visually impaired. They have a main job, and they have been trained specifically for that job. A service animal typically costs about $45,000. They can't be refused anywhere. By law, if somebody refuses them, they can be sued because they are part of them. And so I tell the kids, if you see a service animal, because they're marked, even if you would ask to pet them, they will say no because that dog is working and it needs to know that. The minute their vest comes off, they turn into a playful dog like every other dog. But so that's the different levels. And we are educating kids, and every time I speak somewhere.
So you got at least 4 different levels of training, or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. Yep.
You mentioned that there was kind of a shortage of people that are willing to do this.
Yes.
There is, have you ever heard of RSVP?
Yes. They help us at events.
Okay, so you are familiar with them.
I am.
Basically, it's senior citizens.
I know, I just got old enough to join. As of November.
I've been joined for a while. So anyway, you're familiar with them, and
I
you know there is a source of people that would be interested in doing this kind of work.
Yeah, so when I speak, I'll say anybody that has a dog that's well behaved and that is somewhat trained, you can still do it. That's the people we want. That their dog loves attention. And then we can help you get through the process. We don't certify the teams at this point. That is our future though. So I do a Zoom call once a month. On a Monday night at 7 o'clock. And I get lots of people. And I can tell you of the 42 teams that we've had, I bet you 30 of them have started from scratch, realized that, oh, is that all I have to do? My dog's ready to take the test.
You mentioned liability.
Right here
Yeah.
is a prime example.
You mentioned liability insurance.
Yeah.
Is it hard to get, or is it easy to get, or what's involved?
So when you pass your test with a certification company like Pet Partners, Alliance of Therapy Dogs United, those are some nationwide ones, they give you the insurance. Now, that insurance is only good though if you're volunteering with your dog. So Jenny is not covered by them during her school day. So Jenny has to get a separate insurance policy, like an umbrella policy from her homeowners, something like that. And it can cost between $350 and $500 a year for that. To be part of an organization, we pay dues every year to be like part of Pet Partners. So it's $40 a year to keep my insurance. And then every 2 years, I have to get reevaluated with my dog, which I think is really good. It's good. Our dogs get older, they change. We get older, we might not follow through with commands like we should. So it's good for us for that refresher.
Yeah, well done. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Natalie?
Very hesitant to talk but the tissues are here.
I hear you.
I just really am grateful. If I don't look at you, I can talk. I'm just
Okay.
kidding.
I
Just look at
understand.
the very cute dog.
Actually, tears are good.
They're very good. And it's just really, you're leading by example by sharing your story and being so vulnerable with us. And I just really appreciate that. You're allowing us to hear the horror that led you to finding the light. And that is a beautiful thing that our kids need. So I'm going to stop, but thank you so much.
There's real freedom in that. For years, we kept that facade. And, we were afraid when it started to crack. But once you crack it wide open, that's when you start to really heal. That son of mine now is 29 years old, almost 30, married, and he's on his 6th year of teaching. He started his career at St. Cloud Tech, the last year in the old building. Yeah. Yeah. And so he's quiet about my sharing. I mean, he doesn't want to be known as that teacher, that kid, but he has allowed me to utilize this for good. And that was the point. He says, as long as you're doing it for good, Mom, you can share. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm sorry we took so much of your time. Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for being here. Tammy or Paul, and I don't know if you would be comfortable with, could we have this as a standalone presentation on our YouTube channel?
Wow.
Nope. Okay.
They can't?
We can't.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
anytime you want me to come and speak, whether it's to staff or students, I know I'm coming with all of the mental health staff at the end of. Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to say when Jenny talked about the staff, we are here not only for students, but for staff. So if you have a teacher workshop day, I always say, be the cool boss, have the morale boost come in, and we will be there. So we want our teachers to be, to experience this as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Oh,
And thank you,
you're
Jenny. This
welcome.
was wonderful. Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you.
much. And then if you want to keep looking in the basket there that's right by you, sir, if you want anything, I'll pass it around before I head out. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for bringing Mark.
So you can pass it that way, Scott. Oh. Okay, moving on to our discussion and action items. We have 3 tonight. First up, we have an action item. It is the appointment of board clerk. As everyone knows here, but those of you listening or watching may not know, unfortunately, Bruce Henches needed to resign from his position on January 31st of this year. It was wonderful to have him back for that short amount of time. He hit that ground running and did a lot in 31 days. That was impressive. It was great to have him back. And so unfortunately, the next 2 action items are how we're going to handle that situation. So first, we need to replace his role as board clerk. And Heather so kindly voluntold, she said, So this is an action item, and so I'm making a motion, I believe this is how we're going to handle this, to nominate Heather as our board clerk this year, if I can have a second for that. Okay, I have a second by Natalie. And so then, Zach, for the last time, can you call vote, and then we'll hand it over to our new board clerk.
Shannon Hodges.
Yes.
Diana Fenton.
Yes.
Zach Dorhals, yes. Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Scott Andresen.
Yes.
Heather Weems.
Yes.
All right. You're in. Thank you. Okay, so then, now we need to, next up is another action item. It is the adoption of a resolution filling the school board vacancy by appointment. And I hope I can summarize this. So according to Minnesota statute, how we fill that seat is the school board appoints somebody to the seat. We do that at a board meeting by a resolution. Then it has 30 days. Once it hits the 30 days, then that appointment is official. And the person that we appoint is then a school board chair. However, the term, school board member, excuse me. However, only until, given the length of time, would be, because it would be the first Tuesday of the first Monday after the first Monday in November, we would have to hold a special election to permanently fill that seat for the rest of the length of Bruce's term, if that makes sense. So we need a resolution tonight to appoint somebody. It is executed after a 30-day wait period, and then that person is in that seat, but we have a special election in November, and then that whoever is elected by the public then holds that until the end of the term. Does that make sense? Yes, please.
Two questions, I think. So in the 30-day period, from today when we nominate, vote, until it's resolved, what happens during that 30 days? Like, do people object, or is it just a waiting period defined?
I printed off the Minnesota statutes here. So it says the position, the vacancy must be filled by board appointment at a regular special board meeting. The appointment shall be evidenced by a resolution entered in the minutes and shall be effective 30 days following adoption of the resolution. I think that there's 30 days, I thought it said in here, where somebody can voice a concern, formally voice a concern.
To the clerk. All right.
Yes.
All right. Now I know. Okay. So that's the 30 days.
Yes.
And then on a special election next November, is there the same requirement, like in a regular election, you have to nominate, or you have to register by some date and then file by some date and then do stuff? Is it the
Yep,
same
it'll
process?
follow the same. The only thing that we're not clear of right now is the fact that we as a district opt into the primary system. So we're waiting to hear back from the Secretary of State's office to make sure that we don't have to do a primary in August for a special election. So we don't think that we do based on reading the statute, but we're waiting for confirmation that the board would likely have to take action to temporarily opt out of the primary system for the purpose of the special election, because clearly any election we're holding is at our expense. And so to hold a primary and then a general election would be a lot of money. Yes, so our initial thought is that we don't need to do that, but we're still waiting to verify that.
If we attach ourselves to there's already an election in November, right? No?
Not necessarily, because it's an off year. But utilizing the November date, there is a potential, because you never know if there were to be an open council member seat in one of our jurisdictions or a county seat, or if any of those other entities within our jurisdiction might want to do a special election for some sort of bonding project or something. So utilizing the November date has a possibility that we may be able to combine and share costs
Okay.
if there were to be. But it wouldn't be a normal election because there's no political office, regularly scheduled political office election on the odd year.
But that's the longest we can wait, is my understanding. We can't cycle through and wait for the next one.
Correct.
Can we do it sooner?
You could, but then we're gambling that it's, that straight up that we're gonna, it would be eating the cost of it. And then we would be scrambling to put a lot of stuff together here too. So it doesn't seem like, to me, it doesn't seem like there's a benefit if I'm doing pros and cons of doing it sooner.
Right. Financially, it's really unlikely that if someone were to have a seat or want to hold a special election for bonding, typically you're going to see that happen in November. So from a financial standpoint, to have any possibility of cost sharing, November is our best option. We also are going to look into whether there's a possibility to bring forward legislation or have one of our representatives bring forward legislation related to combining polling places, because that's a once-a-year election, and we have elected for the calendar year to not combine polling places because of the referendum. So as it stands today, under current law, we would have to have all 62 precincts open for the special election in November, which seems to defeat the purpose of how the statute is written. So that's something that we'll be trying to reach out to legislators to hopefully bring forward. But that's another reason why the November is the most advantageous, because we may not know if any legislation that would give us some leeway there. We wouldn't know that in time to have anything prior to November.
Why couldn't it be done at the same time as the referendum?
Those dates have passed, so the filing and the notification period to add ballots are printed. Had we known in December, right, that would have potentially been a possibility. But at this point, all of those mandatory first notices and county notices and that is already past those deadlines.
So to be good stewards with taxpayer dollars, November makes the most sense. Okay, so so I have a resolution in front of me. Before I read it, we have to identify who we would like to appoint as the empty seat that Bruce has here. So I am suggesting Al Dahlgren. The reasons for that are, as we know here, but the viewers and listeners may not know, is this past November, there were 7 people on the ballot, 7 community members that were interested in serving on the school board. The top 4 were elected. Al came in 5th. So therefore, it would make sense to me that he would be the person that we would appoint to that seat. And then again, November, we would have a special election and would go back to the voters. So I will read this resolution and then and look for a motion in a second. But does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, so I'll read this. Resolution filling school board vacancy by appointment. Whereas a vacancy exists in the school board of a school board member with term expiring the first Monday in January 2029, and whereas the vacancy occurred more than 90 days prior to the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November in the year the vacancy occurred in the first or second year of the vacant term. I appreciate whoever wrote this. Therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of St. Cloud Area Schools, Independent School District 742, State of Minnesota as follows. Pursuant to Minnesota statutes, Section 123B, 09, Subdivision 5B, Al Dahlgren is hereby appointed to fill the vacancy and serve until a successor is elected and qualified. The appointment shall be effective 30 days after the adoption of this resolution unless a valid petition to reject the appointee is filled with the school district clerk pursuant to Minnesota statutes, Section 123B, 09, Subdivision 5BB, within that 30-day time period. I should also say that I did reach out to Al and said if it was approved, would he accept the position? That would be important to ask him, of which he said yes. So looking for a motion and a second, okay.
I'll move that, yeah.
And do I have a second of a motion by Scott?
Second.
And a second by Heather. Any further discussion on this? Natalie?
I think that this, am I right in this, that he would serve until December of this year and then the new person would start January 1?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
I
just
just
like
didn't know
us
if-
when we're coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that needed to be included in here because it says, it doesn't say how long he's serving. You know what I mean? Is that okay that it doesn't because we know it? Because it's in statute. Thank you. Okay.
Good question. Any other discussion? Heather, clerk? This says aye. I think, can you call vote just to make sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Scott Andreessen,
Yes.
Natalie Copeland,
Yes.
Zach Durholt. Diana Fenton,
Yes.
Shannon Hawes,
Yes.
Heather Weems, yes.
All right, thank you. And then I will sign these and pass them to you, and I'm not sure, do we really need to sign all these, do you think? Okay, just one. Maybe I was supposed to pass these out. I don't know. All right, thank you. Then we have one discussion item tonight. We have the 2025-2026 middle level courses updates presented by Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, and Hillary Johnson, again, Director of Secondary Education. You're becoming a regular here.
Good evening, Chair Haas, Superintendent Putnam, board members. Welcome back, Al. You're going to be sitting next to me. I see Heather move down to the other end. So if you're listening, and welcome back. I'll look forward to sitting next to you in the rearrangement of seats. So tonight, you all will get a chance to get a quick update of what's going on in middle level courses. What options do students have to select and choose when they're in middle schools, grades 6 through 8? And so I think when we looked at it, our students kind of get a well-roundedness of course offerings in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And that's all due to you all kind of looking and making sure we're following all the things, and then MDE's requirements around curriculum and what's offered. So all the lines to our strategic objectives around culture and climate, instruction that produces positive results, innovation, career and post-secondary options, and then family and community engagement. And so when we look at those courses, the program, we align it to everything that we're doing and what our focus areas are. So the specific vision of the program really starts to, at this age, if you go to the next one, at middle level, explore, kind of self-reflect, plan. It's the age of where I want to try we want them to try everything. We want them to explore all the courses and find your interests and build off of it. And so we began to look at it to start to think about find your interests, reflect, and then start to think about what are some of the things down the line and you might want to have a career in or grow your talents. And so these are the things in middle level that we really start to focus in on as it prepares for those future ready graduates. And Director Johnson's going to really go through like the courses and really hit the details of what we see.
Am I on? Okay. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, board members, for having me tonight. I am going to give you a summary of our middle level courses, starting with each grade level. So in sixth grade, this is really our transition year from middle school. I also want to note that all of our grades in middle school do teaming. The teaming model allows for our students to have the same advisory, math, language arts, and science teachers. All of our students in sixth grade also have allied rotations in robotics, art, Phi Ed, and Life Smarts. Life Smarts 1.0 is a sixth grade class to prepare students to thrive as young adolescents in healthy decision making and introduces them to career fields in health and human services. Also in this transition, students get their first choice in picking a class, which I have a to-be sixth grader, and this is a really big deal at our house right now. So they get to choose between band, choir, orchestra, or C4, which is the Introduction to College, Career, Community, and Citizenship. C4 is a place for students to deepen their understanding of future-ready skills like organization, time management, and collaborative thinking. In seventh grade, students have that same teaming model through language arts, science, and social studies. They have the same teaming model, but in language arts, science, and social studies, they now are able, if they choose, to choose assignments that deepen and extend their knowledge beyond our core curriculum for an honors distinction on their report card. The allied rotations in seventh grade, Phi Ed, health, art, and energy and machines. Energy and Machines offer students a chance to engage with computers, machines, and tools that solve problems and create. We're excited next year to add an introduction to AI literacy to help students understand how AI also helps them solve problems and create. In seventh grade, students have this additional choice for their elective of making music. In eighth grade, our students get the most variety to explore their interests and careers. In math, science, social studies, and language arts, we offer honors courses. The Allies offered World Language Sampler to Phi Ed, art, and now they have Life Smarts 2.0. In Life Smarts 2.0, students are introduced to personal finance and careers in business and entrepreneurship. Eighth grade students also have an additional elective of Tech Ed. And in this class, they build a shed or a large play structure that we actually sell to the public and use as revenue to continue the course. By the end of eighth grade, our students have exposure to many careers and areas of interest that set them up for choosing their classes and pathways in high school. Another area of our middle level programming that I wanted to highlight tonight is our continuation of world language immersion in Chinese at North and Spanish at South. Students in these programs at middle school take a period of world language, and then they also get their social studies credit taught in their world language. This is a picture here of our students at South meeting their Amity, which is a program that we have of a native language speaker that comes and works with our students for the year, and they build really close bonds, and this was them getting to have a video call with their Amity from last year. So now you're wondering, how do students get to choose? How do we sign up for all these courses? So we are kind of right in the thick of it. Last week was middle level open house for incoming fifth graders. Our students were able to meet principals, they were able to meet sixth grade teachers, the athletic directors were there with all the activities that we offer. Our music teachers also do a tour of all of our elementary schools. So our fifth graders get to see a concert with all the options that they have for sixth grade. Late January, the registration began, where the counselors from sixth grade actually go into our elementary schools and register the students right there. In April and May, we'll finalize master schedules and the registration process. These are the people that do all the magic. They are such a talented team that gave presentations to parents at open house. They work really closely with each fifth grade student so that they know what they want and that they feel confident in their choices. At South, they have 3 as well. And at Kennedy, Dana works with our students transitioning between the Kennedy Elementary School and middle school. Ways that we support, like I said, our counselors give a lot of presentations both in the evening to parents and work with the students and the fifth graders in schools. They hold individual meetings. If any student was to register new to the district, it comes to them and they reach out to each individual family about what options that they would like to choose. And then our school webpage has a whole section dedicated to middle level programming and has their own middle level guide that as a parent have found very helpful to answer any questions or think about ways to talk to my child about what's the best choice for them. So thank you. We are happy to take any questions that you might have about middle level courses and programming.
Anybody have any questions? Scott?
Tell me about Life Smarts.
I know, doesn't it sound great?
Oh, it does. And I think it was about 8th grade that I taught a little bit of it.
Yes, I'm hopeful for all of them. So we have Life Smarts 1.0 and 2.0 that are really directed at that 6th grade level is really thinking about like, what are healthy choices that you make as an adolescent and how do I, emotionally regulate? How do I keep myself healthy? How do I reach out to adults for support? So that's Life Smarts 1.0. And then by Life Smarts 2.0, our students are doing, sorry, I gotta use my notes on that one. So Life Smarts 2.0 is the personal finance. So that's where they really dig into finance, business careers, and entrepreneurship.
I understand 2.0. I used to teach that. 1.0, I'm a little confused. Is that relationships or what?
It's like, some of it is like systems of the body. Some of it is, healthy relationships, how to work with others.
Think about it when you were in middle school and you were just coming into middle school, learning yourself, learning peer groups, self-esteem, all the things that help set you up to be a good human, right? We started 6th grade. You remember those days where you're in 6th grade and you were coming in and you're middle school and how's this all feel? It helps them really set up that social emotional piece that students really need to get ready for what's coming in 7th, 8th, all the way into high school. And so,
From what I remember, there was an awful lot of bullying at that age group.
right?
And I think our teachers do a really good job. I think since maybe we experienced it, of talking about different ways to self-regulate, be friends, like build that community so that our students aren't feeling that same thing. One of the ways that the teacher talks about it is like a life hack. So 1.0 is kind of life hacks in order to be a thriving middle schooler.
One thing that seems to help is athletics. You get an awful lot of pent-up energy out.
Yeah, and we are really lucky. We have fabulous programs in middle school for our students to explore in all sorts of different athletics. And the athletic directors were at the open houses already giving parents, like, this is how you do a physical. This is where you're gonna fill out the forms. Like, I walked out of that open house with like everything I would need to have her registered in the fall.
Just the added piece around the arts, right? We see middle school kids to instruments and music. You now start to build the theater program in middle school with plays and all the things outside just the athletics, where you don't see that a lot in a lot of schools. And so when I spoke earlier to the well-roundedness, we looked at it. Your student, if they come to get an education from us, they get a well-rounded choice of options in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so when we talk about middle school, and I'll just say this because people are in selection and choice on where they want to go to school. Our school offers the best of the best. I know we get images and names, but when we look at it, you just heard it, what offers and compared to our partners and what we give, we're right where we need to be to the extent of what we need to add and transform for students in the next 5 to 10 years. And so I think our folks are grounded into what we need to do. So,
Diana?
I just have a couple questions on the 7th grade Allied and the new energy and machines. If you can just take me through that. Are we introducing that as more of a computer science coding application to launch up to high school computer science? Or is that more of an AI focus? And then I have a second question about AI, so I'll let you answer that first.
Thank you. So in 6th grade, in robotics, they really get the introduction to coding there. Well, and actually a lot of our elementary schools are doing coding, so our kids are coding pretty early. So 6th grade, though, in robotics is where they would really see that. This is really about how we're using those machines to create and problem solve. So they'll use everything from a computer to a saw, to like those are the tools that we're talking about. Like they're going to be almost like an introduction to some tech ed in that class as well. So it's an introduction to how all the machines and power can help us solve whatever problems we encounter.
And all of our students will get that opportunity.
Every student. So that's an Allied that everyone takes. It's not a choice.
That's fantastic. So my second question then leads to the new additional unit on AI literacy. So obviously that is the big piece that's changing education in powerful and somewhat scary ways. And it impacts every content area. And I'm concerned of a unit when I could be using AI to know to help write my language art assignment, to getting math assistance on Khan Academy, to doing this, and whether the approach of a unit is enough when students may or may not have the skills to know ethical and non-ethical uses early on, and it will impact them throughout. And I know you've put on Schoology assignments where it's coded red, green, yellow, to, you can use it with caution and use it with that. So I'm just wondering how they start in 6th grade, how they're getting that message on how they should be appropriately using AI, and whether the target of 7th grade and that additional unit there is maybe too late, or is it enough, or should we be doing it across all content areas? Just a question.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Our end goal, so starting with 1 unit now, as we're like really learning, and we have partnered with the Center for Curriculum Redesign, who has really been leaders and been involved in the district in other ways, to give us some of the state-of-the-art, the best, most thoughtful curriculum in order to support our students in that. So that's one thing that gives like a lot of excitement to our teachers that are going to be able to access that. But yeah, it is becoming a piece for all of us to talk about. And I think the piece of this curriculum that is most excited is they really are talking about like, how is it built? What does this mean? You are still a human that holds the wisdom, and this is a tool. And how do we use a tool like AI just like we use a tool like a saw, right? I don't want a saw where I'm going to chop my hand off, right? I want to use this in a way that makes sense for me to empower myself to understand. And I think that's the part, like, no, a unit right now is not enough, but it is our step in the direction as we're hoping to do some rethinking around middle school and then line up the right licenses and get the right people in place to really be leaders that we think we can be in this area.
Well, I think it's a great addition, and I think it's needed, and I like that whole allied piece that you've added to 7th grade. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate how this was organized so we could see the big picture. If you just do like, oh, these are the new classes, and then I'm like, get a little bit confused to just the basics and then the options on there. Not basics, but the foundation of it and everything. So thank you. It was great seeing you again.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to reports. We have a Board of Education Standing Committee reports. I believe we just have one, the Board Development Policy and Governance Committee Chair, Zach Dorholt.
Thank you, Dr. Harris, for passing this along. And it's even in large print, so I don't have to wear my bifocals. You must have been seeing me squinting all the time.
I used to give it to Scott, and so Scott's eyes, I don't know, so now new hands.
So committee met on January 29th And Assistant Superintendent Avenson Harris presented proposed board policies. Policy 525, violence prevention, policy 535, service animals in schools. And service animals is very specific. Two policies were reviewed and recommended to move forward to tonight's board meeting for first read. That is our report. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Personnel Negotiations Committee, Chair Natalie Copeland.
Yes, we met on January 28th. We talked about the 24-25 staffing process. Administration reviewed the 25-26 staffing timelines and flow charts. The timelines will be reviewed for the full board in March. Administration is currently reviewing staffing structures at the district level and in each of our buildings and programs to align with identified priorities and budgets. And that was it.
Okay, that's everybody on that one. Then we have future agenda items. The February 19th, 2025 board meeting topics will include Clearview School Presentation, American Indian Education Update, American Indian Parent Advisory Committee Compliance Documentation, and some policy readings. At this time, does any board member wish to suggest a future agenda item? Heather?
I know that in the federal administrative change, governing change, there's lots of topics on discussion with federal cuts. Is there a place where we will just become aware of the impact of and many of them are still being interpreted, but is there a time or a way to be educated about this? So for instance, I believe, is it the YES network that provides food after school? I believe that's already not being served. It's been cut already. So is there a place or a process by which we just will be in the loop and potentially able to understand how it's not just to the school, but potentially some of our partners around us? I don't know if that's an agenda item. It's a question.
Yeah. In finance? Amy? Yeah.
The hard part is that it changes every day. Like we could give an update and it could be obsolete the next day. So at this point, I would say maybe the best means for that is either through our board updates or through email, if there were to be something that significantly impacts elimination of programs or services. A lot of the ones, so United Way is a good example. They had paused everything and we just got the green light that they are good through the end of February. And so within a matter of 3 days, it was, yes, we're good. No, we're not. Now we're good again. So it's really very, very fluid. I think we will definitely, as we move to budgeting for next year, that would be part of the budget presentation in terms of what things do we know? If there are things by the time, between now and when the budget comes to the board that are definitive, yes, we don't have this funding. And there's some things that if we don't know, we may still be being conservative and how we're updating the budget to reflect some of that uncertainty. So certainly that would be part of the budget presentation as far as what are the assumptions that we're using as we budget and staff for next year. And at this point, we're assuming the continuation of our, federal lunch program, right? That would be a significant financial consideration. We have to kind of move forward on the assumption that everything is business as usual unless we hear otherwise. But certainly I think we can connect about what is that means to notify the board if we do receive a notification of some sort of discontinuation of funding or change that has a widespread impact on the programs we offer.
Yeah, I appreciate how you brought this up. I think as a board member, I know about the YES Network only because I know from my other workings in the community, but I would appreciate maybe an email that just says these are on pause or like a regular update, just because the community has already asked me like, oh, the school board, what are you guys hearing? That sort of a thing. And I'm always like, it changes every day, just like Amy says. But today I know this, and tomorrow I'll know something different. But yeah, if we could just have the information, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. Tonight, the board meeting is going to be longer than the work session. So that was everything on our regular board meeting. So I'm looking to adjourn our motion to adjourn our regular board meeting. I have a motion by Natalie, a second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? So our regular board meeting is adjourned at 8:01, and at that same time, opening up our Board of Education work session. So we have first up the schools update, and we have presenting Dr. Jason Harris, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, and Shannon Avenson, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Educational Services.
Good evening, everyone. All right, schools update. I will be sharing on behalf of Assistant Superintendent Nikki Hansen tonight. And so we're going to begin with our Discovery Dolphins. And so first, we are showcasing safety. You will see our Discovery students in their routine of lining up for lunch. Each student stops to get their hand sanitizer before entering the food service area and then scanning their lunch card before they move on to one of the 2 serving stations. Belonging. You see some students enjoying eating pizza with the principal and sharing their voice and perspectives while engaging in school conversations. Teachers nominate 1 student each month who shows the school-wide expectations of being responsible, respectful, and safe to participate in this celebration. Here are some of our young authors working in collaboration to write a story. Some students are writing a paragraph and others are creating the illustrations. And excellence through high expectations and high supports is demonstrated here by 2 multilingual students who researched and created these displays to share at Discovery's annual cultural night. Students chose countries to showcase where they have family. There were 20 different countries displayed for the event.
And for our secondary middle level update, we are going to focus on South Junior High Tigers. And you see the first image of the Academic Achievers Celebration for students just around all the things school community, and they had a big celebration around that. The sense of belonging, the 8th grade art club visited elementary schools to share their art and create a sense of belonging as they transition into middle school. And that's just a great way to create belonging by middle school 8th graders going to talk to the elementary students that'll eventually be them one day. Collaboration, you had the WEAC students making a robot for the One District, One Book, and just collaborating there. That was a good picture of the group working. And then high expectations, high support. You had a career in a year, kind of what we just talked about with our course offerings, really getting students to start to look at that career options, post-secondary, find your interest. And they had a career in a year, and they had multiple professionals. You had our former alum, Brevin Spann from the Tech Tigers, former Gopher, Dallas Cowboy, right? And so our homegrown student athlete. And it was a great day. I think last week they did the career in the year, and it was a big success.
All right, and this week we are celebrating Catherine Johnson Education Center, and for safety, our elementary students at Catherine Johnson enjoying working together on social skills. For belonging, I love this picture, our middle school staff of Catherine Johnson attending a basketball game at North Junior High to support one of their students. Yeah. Collaboration. KJAC's InStep program collaborates with community partners to provide work experience opportunities for our 18 to 21-year-old students. And then high expectations, high supports. Here is one of our KJAC middle school students who is proudly displaying his point card for meeting all 3 of his goal areas for that day. And then one of our middle school spelling bee winners proudly displaying his prize for that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys very much. It's still going to be the Shannon Avison show here. We have Shannon Avison, Assistant Superintendent of E12 Educational Services, has two policy readings, both for first readings. First up, we have proposed revised Board Policy 525, Violence Prevention.
All right. I am going to go through and I'm just going to highlight the areas that we are proposing changes. Not a lot of changes to this policy, but what we did is we looked at MSBA guidance. And so I will just share, I won't go through the whole policy, but just some guidance and some updates that we are proposing. You can see keeping our purpose of this policy and general statement the same. And then implementation of this policy as well until we get, and I'll scroll down here. All right. And this is just some guidance from MSBA around some statute. We've seen this in previous policy updates where we just use the actual calling out of Minnesota statute section instead of shortening that. And then additionally, just a language piece there in that next line for I. When we get down further into prevention strategies, you're going to see a lot more highlights. The main piece of the highlights is the MSBA model policy. You'll see a lot of words like crossed out that say create or develop or coordinate. And when we met last week, we changed a lot of that wording, and some of that wording had already been changed in our policy to implement, because we're beyond creating and developing, and we're moving into implementation around these practices. So there you'll see, again, some language change in item B. That was an MSBA recommendation as well, and you're gonna see that language is just moved to a different section where we actually highlight it and call out some curriculum around that. So that language doesn't go away completely. I think there was just an intentional separating that to create some intentionality around that, which I'll share. So moving into E, and this is where we start to see some additional language that MSBA is recommending. MSBA is recommending, really kind of the baseline, and what we have always done is in-service training for personnel with mandatory reporting. And you can see that was the basis of that piece there. But really what this language and recommendation is to expand it to include additional training around and include school board members as well in this training by experts familiar with sexual abuse, domestic violence, et cetera. So what it's really doing is saying we're no longer just providing in-service training around mandatory reporting requirements. We're expanding that to improve that training. Moving into G. G is an added, and before where I shared that curriculum or that this language was stricken, this is where it's really calling out that language to say we will utilize a curriculum committee. So this is new language, but now we're actually going to focus on a curriculum committee that explores ways of teaching students violence prevention strategies. And some things that we discussed as the policy team was looking, we do this in things through SEL lessons, advisory lessons, health, PBIS, restorative practices, but really being intentional about utilizing a specific curriculum committee to really look into that and being consistent district-wide. And then you see here items H through O, where we're really getting rid of those words that say establish, develop, and we're moving into implement in those pieces. J, again, some inclusion of additional language to go beyond peer mediation and to include the terms conflict resolution and conflict management, which we do. These are practices that we use, so that guidance from MSBA language, really, it made sense to include that as well. L is another additional MSBA recommendation and really calls out implementing curriculum that teaches critical viewing and listening skills in analyzing mass media. So as you can imagine, that is a very critical piece and element to that policy. So we agreed that that was good guidance. Moving down, you'll note some additional language in letter Q. Letter Q, it's including the Child Welfare Information Gateway. It's just including a specific resource that we can have made available when sharing that information and developing curriculum and implementing curriculum. And again, that was guidance from MSBA language. Moving on to R, again, providing training to all school personnel on mandatory reporting requirements. This, again, additional language on recognizing and preventing sexual abuse and sexual violence, which, so it's again going beyond just that mandated reporting requirement training to include some intentionality to provide additional training and guidance. And this is something that we do with our mental health team. We worked with Safe Harbor in the past, but this is looking at expanding that, making our teams more knowledgeable. And then finally, moving down, just again, some statute language changes, as we've seen in past updates, that just, it's really kind of just legal statute updates down there. So we are proposing that change as well.
Any questions at all on that policy, first reading? Natalie?
I did notice that part where it says that board members need to do that as well. So will you be sharing with us how we can participate in that at some point?
I would be excited to.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon.
Okay. Then we're going to move on to proposed revised board policy 535, service animals in schools.
How appropriate. And actually why I chose this policy for tonight. All right, and because of the great questions that Scott asked, really, it really kind of led to a lot of the pieces that are in our policy. So, all right, moving into service animals in schools. Again, some updated language changes just in the purpose. Again, this is an MSBA guidance to indicate that within the policy, it's within the scope of the school buildings and on-school grounds. Taking out that other property piece, I think that's just maybe a little misleading or a little confusing language potentially. General statement of policy and looking at, again, just taking out that statute that is specific to the Americans with Disability Act and knowing that our legal references are included at the end of the policy. So again, you have the legal references for this policy that are all listed at the end. When we get to definitions, you're going to notice service animal definitions has stayed the same since the last time we reviewed the policy, I think in like 2021. Handler, the MSBA recommendation is to take out some language in the definition of handler that gave some reference to a trainer who could also be interchangeably used as a handler. That language is rather confusing, and you'll note that down here in item D, trainer is actually specifically outlined. So it does make sense in this to remove that language from up here and let it be clarified under item D down here. When we move to access to programs and activities, these are two pieces that MSBA guidance, and again, we last updated this policy in 2021, so just some additional guidance indicating that we should include B and C, that it is an unfair, and Amy actually alluded to this tonight, so it was perfect. It's an unfair discriminatory practice to prohibit a person with a disability from taking a service animal into a public place. So that's included now in our policy. And that also, and that other piece there is just indicating that as long as the animal is under, maintained on the leash and under control. So that's what that is alluding to. And then C, the school district shall not require a person with a disability to make an extra payment. that we are not charging if a student has a need to have a service animal. So that is a recommendation as well. And then no other changes to the access to programs and activities. And again, I just want to highlight too that really the piece of the service animal and the distinction, it does have to be a dog or a, yes, or a miniature horse. And so that is right, kind of an unusual thing, but that is the law. And in this case, but it has to be in service of a task. So it's not just about having a disability. It's about that the animal is providing, it has a specific task that it is performing. So I just want to highlight that just for awareness as well. And then when we go down to requirements for all service animals, we kept the language the same until we get down to item G. This is language that we wanted to just update to indicate that if there are any issues related to the care and supervision of service animals, they would be addressed on a case-by-case basis at the discretion of, and we're recommending that we not have it be the building administrator, that we actually say superintendent or designee. And the conversation that we had around that, really, honestly, it would probably come to myself or Tracy. And so it made sense that when it gets to that point, if there's a need, that would naturally come to one of us. And then this is probably one of the bigger changes, but there was two pieces here. One is requesting the use of a service animal at school. The piece here that you see crossed out, and I apologize, I think the one that Jan sent was a previous copy. It doesn't include this highlighted portion down here, so it may be a little different what you might see. But the previous copy, this language up here that's crossed out is what was in our policy most recently. MSBA had some updated language. I worked with Tracy Bow to really kind of modify that language. And the reason that we wanted to modify it is, you'll note in here that prior to bringing a service animal on district property or facilities, we really want to make sure that there's a conversation and some planning, some pre-planning that's done. MSBA's policy was a little more straightforward and just like, fill out a form and bring it in. And we know what we would not prohibit. Obviously, this policy is very clear that we would not prohibit a service animal from coming, but we do want to support a smooth transition and make sure that and so Tracy gave us some wonderful language there to kind of nuance that so that we could be more prepared. And then item under B here, you'll notice we did strike through, and we'd like to remove the language that says the owner of the service animal shall provide written evidence that the service animal has received all vaccinations required by state law or local ordinance. We would keep that because that is a requirement, and within MSBA's recommendation as well, but that we would actually remove, in addition, a treatment for fleas and ticks will be required annually. That is not within the guidance, and I honestly don't believe that. We don't currently require it, and I don't think we can. So we would agree that language could be stricken. And moving through here some more, down to no further changes there. But then when we get down to additional limitations for miniature horses, we would agree with MSBA's recommendation to remove item E, which is whether the miniature horse's presence is contrary to any other provision of this policy, which is basically just stating the obvious, that if you're not meeting the criteria of this policy, then your miniature horse can't be here. So that language is kind of redundant. And then allergies, fears of animals were all no recommendations for changes within those pieces. The 504 and IEPs was good. Liability pieces are all good. Once again, just getting down to legal references, you'll note that there's just some statute language changes, which are we would recommend as well. policy 535.
All right. Any questions on that one? Heather, and then Scott.
Have you had situations, I mean, with allergies particularly, with probably both dogs and miniature horses, but have you had situations and how do you manage that practically?
Great question. I've actually been surprised that we haven't had many questions or concerns about allergies. Our policy, and I won't say it verbatim because I don't have it memorized, but our policy does state if there are concerns with allergies that they need to bring, the person who has the allergies can bring that forward, and we will make every accommodation possible to, make sure that's not an issue. But it is incredibly rare. And as you know, I work with the nurses, so I would probably be the one to hear it. Yeah. But great question, and I think it's a pretty typical assumption that there would be more allergies and concerns, but it has not been, and I have been in a couple of schools where we have had service dogs, and we have not had issues.
Scott?
I learned an awful lot tonight from our presenters. There seems to be a difference between a service dog and a facility dog. Now, almost all of our policies related to service-type dogs that are basically responsible of the disabled. And yet we have a facility dog in our place who is not really the responsibility of the disabled as the counselor. Perhaps there should be something delineating responsibilities regarding the facility dog.
We do, as they mentioned, and the facility dog or therapy dogs are not included in this particular policy, but that is why we do have a contract in place that really outlines those pieces. So we do have a contract that really outlines the liability insurance and the practices around the therapy dog.
But is there anything in our policy saying we can have therapy dogs?
I don't know that we have a policy that specifically outlines therapy dogs, and I don't know that that would be necessary, but it certainly could be explored.
I would imagine MSBA has never heard of therapy dogs versus service dogs either.
I'm almost certain that MSBA does not have a model policy on therapy dogs. I'm like 99.9 on that one.
Maybe we can look into it a little more and do a little more on that. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything for tonight? All right. See, that was a very quick work session there. Work session is adjourned. It is 8:24 p.m. Thank you for watching tonight. We will be back February 19th. Have a good night.